Hello students, we're on Unit 2, page 14, and we're about to do our reading section of this unit. Before you read, it says look at the photos and answer the questions. So we have the three photos of people in different jobs or professions, if you like. Where are the people working? What hours do you think they work? And the first person looks to be working in a library. Okay, maybe they are a librarian, we don't know. Maybe they're doing part-time work, we don't know. But they're working in a library. Next person seems to be working in a cinema, so they would be an usher in a cinema. And finally, this person seems to be working in a restaurant, and it looks like they are a waiter or waitress, if you like. The second question is, what hours do you think they work? Now, what hours is a strange question. What hours means what time do they start and what time do they finish? How much time do they work at the job? So if you look at a librarian or a person who works in a library, what hours do you think they work? Usually a library opens early and finishes in the evening. So maybe the person works from 7 a.m., 7 until 2 p.m., or maybe 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. We don't know, but not nighttime usually. Then if you look at a cinema worker, I think a cinema worker, little bit different. These hours and these hours are different. A cinema worker could work early afternoon or late night because of movies and late night movies. And finally, a waitress, usually a waitress could work early, could work in the afternoon, the evening. Sometimes a waitress could work late as well. So the hours, usually early to after evening hours, afternoon to evening, late hours, maybe late hours as well. So when you're choosing a job, you also have the different hours that you work. Okay, people might say to you, what is your job? And then the next question, second question, what hours do you work? So with this in mind, we look at our reading here, okay? And we have student news, okay? Student news. Excuse me, I'll just make sure this is correct. And we have a picture of a young lady here. And the student news says, I'm a student and I have 3 jobs, okay, 3 jobs. So we're going to learn some information about this person and what she is doing for work while she is a student. But before we begin, okay, we're going to do what we did last time. We have some questions underneath. We're going to read the questions first and then read, okay? Because it's very important. You don't have to understand everything, but you've got to get the information you were looking for, okay? So underneath we have the first question, okay? So the first question is, and make sure this is just about right. There we go. Read the article, then answer the questions. Where does she work? Okay, so keyword, where does she work? Downtown Chicago or Highland Park? Does she work in the week? In the week means Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Does she work in the week? Okay, does she work in the week? Next question, does she work on weekends? Weekends, Saturday, Sunday, okay. Number 4, when does she study? Okay, when does she study? Maybe that's the time, or is it the evening, nighttime, morning? When does she study? And finally, does she sleep? Okay, she works 3 jobs, she studies. When does she sleep? Okay, does she sleep? So reading the questions first means we know the questions so that when we're reading, we can maybe get the answer quicker. Okay, so going back, boom, we'll look at our article here, okay? And we will underline any key information that can help us. So first reading, we'll go slowly. I'm a student and I have 3 jobs. Marie Rodriguez is a student at the University of Chicago. Marie Rodriguez is a student at the University of Chicago, okay? So maybe we can underline University of Chicago. Next one, the tuition fees. Tuition fees means how much she pays for school. How much she is paying for school. Tuition fees are $55,000 per year. Maria lives with her parents in Highland Park. Okay, where does she live? Very important. Cook County. It is 42 kilometers north of downtown Chicago. Okay, she says, I want to live in Chicago. She says, but she wants to live in Chicago, but rent for an apartment is expensive. Okay, so she's living with her parents because rent is too expensive. And I need to make money to pay for college. She has three part-time jobs, as we said. Okay, 3 part-time jobs. First job, I'm a server at a restaurant. Okay, so she's a server at a restaurant in Chicago, she says. I bring food and drinks to customers. Then in the evening, I'm a library assistant. Okay, so she works in the library. Okay, and I work at the university library. Then I drive home to Highland Park. On the weekend, I work at the movie theater. I love it. I see movies for free. Okay, so we'll highlight on the weekend so we can come back. Okay, and when does she study? I study every day. Okay, so let's put this in here. She studies every day. She says, on some weekends, I study all night. When does she sleep? I don't sleep a lot, but it's okay. And she adds, I can sleep when I finish school. So she says, I don't sleep a lot. Okay, so we're highlighting little hint for our questions. Okay, so let's look underneath and see if we can answer the questions. First question, where does she work? In downtown Chicago or Highland Park? Where does she work? So let's go back up. She says, tuition fees, Marie lives with her parents in Highland Park, Cook County. It is 42 kilometers north of downtown Chicago. I want to live in Chicago, she says, but rent is for an apartment. So she's living in Highland Park, but she is working in Chicago. I'm a server at a restaurant in Chicago. Okay, all right. And we can say that, where does she work? She works in downtown Chicago, and sometimes she also works in Highland Park at the movie theater on the weekends. Okay, so does she work in the week? Yes, in a restaurant and library. Yes, in an office. We know that she works in the restaurant and library, not in an office. Does she work on weekends? Yes, in a movie theater. Yes, in a library. If we're listening and we marked on the weekend, I work at a movie theater. Okay, on the weekend I work at a movie theater. Whoa, there we go. And finally, when does she study? She studies every day or on weekends. And she says, when does she study? I study every day. So there we go. I study every day. And finally, does she sleep? Yes, after school, or not a lot? And she says, I don't sleep a lot. Okay, so we can say, just to go back and confirm, she says, I don't sleep a lot, not a lot. That means she just sleeps a little bit of sleep. Okay, so when you're reading, make sure you're listening for keywords to connect so you can get your information quickly. Okay, so let's read one more time just for pronunciation. Okay, Marie Rodriguez is a student at the University of Chicago. The tuition fees are $55,000 per year. Marie lives with her parents in Highland Park, Cook County. It is 42 kilometers north of downtown Chicago. I want to live in Chicago, she says, but rent for an apartment is expensive, and I need to make money to pay for college. She has 3 part-time jobs. I'm a server at a restaurant in Chicago, she says. I bring food and drinks to customers. Then in the evening, I'm a library assistant. I work in a university, in the university library. Then I drive home to Highland Park. On the weekend, I work at the movie theater. I love it. I see movies for free. When does she study? I study every day, she says. On some weekends, I study all night. When does she sleep? I don't sleep a lot, but it's okay. She adds something extra. She adds, I can sleep when I finish school. So a lot of information about her. But remember, the more practice you do with the reading out loud, the better. Some difficult words, if there's difficult vocabulary, write them down and we can use them or translate them later. So underneath, we also have group work, or you can use these questions for discussion. Do you work and study at the same time? So you can ask a partner or somebody else. Answer, do you work and study at the same time? Do you have a part-time job? What is it? Describe it means what is it? How many hours? Do you like it? What do you do? And finally, do you know someone with more than one job? Okay, do you have a friend or somebody with more than one job? One job, two jobs, maybe three jobs, more than one job. Okay, so these questions can help you when you're discussing yourself and information about you as well.